Join us on this 5.5 miles kayak from Sheperds Patch to Sharpness Marina on the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal on the 11th of November 2023. Watch on to learn about Sharpness Marina and Lock. Logistics such as launch and landing locations and parking, the Sandbanks Optimal inflatable kayak and the Tootega kinetic sit-on-top kayak that we used on this trip. What it's like to paddle on one of the widest and deepest canals in the UK, and the history of the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal. This kayak on the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal was a 5.5 miles one-way route from Sheperds Patch to Sharpness Marina. We launched from Sheperds Patch near the Slimbridge Wetland Centre at about 1 p.m. We paddled through Purton and past the abandoned hulks at Purton Ship Graveyard before landing at Sharpness Marina at about 3:30 p.m. We've parked up at the Tudor Arms at Sheperds Patch, where we're going to come back for some food and drink after the kayak. We're going to launch next to Patch Swing Bridge at Sheperds Patch, just opposite the Black Shed Cafe, which is over there on the right. It's about 1 p.m. and we're just launching from Sheperds Patch. I'd better duck to get into Patch Swing Bridge. Patch Swing Bridge is one of 18 swing bridges on the canal between Gloucester and Sharpness. They swing open to let the canal boats through, but kayakers can just paddle underneath them. We've already passed all sorts of boats on the canal as we paddle southwards from Sheperds Patch towards Sharpness. Sheldon and I were using a tandem Sandbanks Optimal inflatable kayak for this trip. We'd finally mastered paddling in time with each other after doing a paddle on another section of the canal the day before. Archie's looking very colour coordinated today. He's got a red cap, PFD and jacket to match his red Tootega kinetic kayak. The three of us were feeling a bit under the weather after going out drinking at the Wetherspoons and then the Tank microbrewery at Gloucester Quays the evening before. It was just as well that we were on a flat canal rather than being on a choppy sea for this paddle, or otherwise we'd have all been struggling with seasickness. At Sheperds Patch, we had checked with the Tudor Arms that it was okay to park one of our vehicles in their car park, which is only about 100 metres from the canal. They were fine with us parking our vehicle there, on the basis that we would be calling back to the pub afterwards for food and drink. We had a great meal at the Tudor Arms afterwards, a lovely pub with an awesome selection of beers and ciders. Regarding landing and parking at Sharpness Marina, we did have a bit of an issue with that, which we will elaborate on towards the end of the video when we arrive at Sharpness. The Gloucester and Sharpness Canal opened in 1827 as a ship canal and was once the broadest and deepest in the world. The canal runs for 16 miles from Gloucester down to Sharpness, its aim being to bypass the difficult to navigate stretch of the Severn River below Gloucester. The canal is 86 foot or 26 metres wide and 18 foot or 5.5 metres deep. Even today its sheer scale and engineering is impressive. The docks at Gloucester and the canal continue to be busy with commercial traffic through to the 1960s. Sharpness docks are still active, although there is now little commercial traffic on the canal itself, with it having been replaced by pleasure craft, and kayakers of course. Over on the right you can see the mighty Severn River that runs parallel to the lower half of the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal. The Severn is the longest river in the UK, running for 220 miles. The Sandbanks style optimal inflatable kayak that Sheldon and I were using is made from drop stitch construction. As a result, it inflates to a very high air pressure of 10 psi to 12 psi, which makes it appear and perform very similar to a hard shell kayak. The Sandbank style Optimal is stable and tracks well due to the slight V-shape to the hull and the skeg that you slot onto the hull. It also comes in a shorter solo-only version. When deflated, it packs away into a large carry bag that you can either wheel along using the built-in wheels or carry on your back as a backpack. This portability is extremely useful. We'd better swing hard to starboard because there's a rather large boat coming up the canal straight towards us. It's just as well that the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal is so wide, since we did pass a few quite large boats coming the other way, but there was more than enough room to give them a wide berth. We timed our lunchtime sandwich stop well because there's another large boat coming down the canal towards us. We're just entering the village of Purton, which is one of the locations along the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal where you've got landing and launching locations and also parking. Sheldon sat in the rear seat, had borrowed my cap because he was complaining that the splashing from the paddles was spoiling his hair. Ahead of us there I can see the first of the two swing bridges that are on the canal in Purton. Fortunately these swing bridges are nowhere near as low as some of the ones we encountered on the Monmouthshire and Brecon Canal. There's the second of the two swing bridges in Purton coming up ahead of us. There's some interesting animal carvings on that boat over there. We'll have to get some to put on our kayaks. Archie's got the hydrolite version of the Tootega Kinetic 100 kayak, which is quite light for a hard shell. Archie's Tootega Kinetic has got an adjustable skeg, which is quite handy on shallow rivers. Just on the other side of the canal from this footage, Purton Ship Graveyard has a large number of purposely abandoned boats and ships that were beached with the aim of reinforcing the riverbank between the Severn River and the canal. Between 1909 and the 1970s, at regular intervals, barges, trows and schooners were taken out on the tide, towed by a tug towards the shore and then charged up the bank. As you can see, Archie's Tootega Kinetic kayak has got a storage area in the back and storage hatches on the front. You require a waterways licence to paddle on the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal and also on any other canals managed by the Canal and River Trust. If you join British Canoeing or Canoe Wales, then membership includes the waterways licence, and this seems to be the best way to get the licence. Like a beacon, the large wind turbine at Sharpness Marina became an omnipresent waypoint for the end of our route. We also intend to kayak the Severn estuary, which you can see on the right of the picture, but it will require very careful planning due to the very high tidal range. While all sections of the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal are usually open, as with any canal, some sections can at any time be closed due to maintenance work or other issues. It's worth checking on the Canal and River Trust website for any stoppages on any canal you intend to paddle on before you go, just to make sure you don't have a wasted trip. As we neared Sharpness, we approached two of the remaining piers of the mighty railway bridge, which spanned across the Severn River between 1879 and the 1960s. In 1960, on a dark night, two tank barges filled with petroleum and oil were caught in the fog and struck the bridge piers. Parts of the bridge fell down on the barges, which, being full of fuel, exploded. The railway bridge was so badly damaged that it was subsequently demolished. The boat-lined Sharpness Marina came into view as we paddled the final straight. Sharpness Marina marks the southern end of the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal. When Archie and Sheldon had gone down earlier to leave a vehicle at Sharpness, the only available parking near to the marina seemed to be at the Sharpness viewpoint and picnic site. As shown on this map, which shows our route down to the end of the canal, the parking at Sharpness viewpoint is on the far left of the map, about 1.25 miles away from Sharpness Marina, where we intended to land. The only option seemed to be for Archie to walk about 1.25 miles back to his van at Sharpness viewpoint and then drive back to meet us near to our landing point at the marina. Fortunately, after we had landed at the marina, a very kind lady gave Archie a lift back to his van to save him a long walk, and he then drove back to meet us near the marina. Sharpness Marina on the right is sited on what was the original lock gates, allowing access to the River Severn when the canal was completed in 1827. Sharpness New Dock on the left was opened in 1874. If you did not want to land at Sharpness, then the other option would be to do a circular route from Purton down to Sharpness and back, which would be about 3.5 miles round trip. Sharpness New Dock on the left has served as the port at Sharpness since it opened in 1874. The old dock, which is now in the marina, is on the right. You're not allowed to paddle into the industrial port at Sharpness, but just to satisfy our curiosity, we're going to have a look from the entrance. Archie's an engineer, so he's getting very excited about all of the cranes and the petroleum tanks at the port. As the sign on the bridge says, we're not allowed to go any further into the port, so we're going to go back now towards the marina. To recap, Sharpness viewpoint seems to be the nearest public parking from the end of the canal, but it's about 1.25 miles away. There is a car park near to the end of the canal at the marina, but this seems to be for members of the marina only, so Archie met us in the turning area on the road just aside of the car park, where we loaded our kayaks and gear into his van. The other option may be to try and park at Sharpness Dockers Club, which is a few hundred metres up the road from the end of the canal. You would need to get approval from the Dockers Club beforehand if you wanted to park there. We unfortunately didn't have time to call into Sharpness Dockers Club, but it looks like a great place for food and drinks with its nautical decor. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please give us a thumbs up and consider clicking on the left below to subscribe to our channel. Click on the right below for other videos of our trips on the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal. Please check out our website link below. Happy paddling from the kayak crew.